disease known as EDS, hypermobility type. This sickness varies significantly from person to person, with the majority living quite normal lives despite some discomfort and problems. EDS is essentially a series of illnesses caused by faulty collagen in the body, which causes a variety of symptoms, including joint hypermobility, which occurs when joints become so loose and unstable that they frequently dislocated or subluxated, partially dislocate. It also causes severe joint and soft tissue pain, chronic weariness, easy bruising, and dizziness due to sudden decreases in blood pressure while standing. About 11 years ago, my condition deteriorated substantially, and I had to begin using a wheelchair because walking more than 100 feet became unsafe owing to the risk of hip dislocation. In the last 3 years, I converted to an electric wheelchair because pushing a manual one was too difficult. For reasons I don't entirely understand, my aunt, 54F, has a strong disdain for disabled individuals, particularly those in wheelchairs who still have some leg mobility. For the last 11 years, whenever we were alone, she treated me like a dog. She argued that my condition was fabricated, stating that I made it up to divert attention and because I was envious of anyone else receiving attention, particularly her. I tried confronting her, but dealing with my sickness was already stressful. I kept her opinions to myself because I'm not aggressive and don't see her very often. I didn't want to burden anyone, especially since I was already asking so much from those around me. My parents were fatigued from all of the doctor appointments, so I overlooked my aunt's conduct. I had become accustomed to her rudeness and no longer cared about her opinions, until last week, when everything intensified. I went to see my aunt for our annual family dinner, which she had organized. Everything was going fine until she drank more than normal and became sarcastic at me in front of the family. Some family members confronted her, stating that her behavior was disrespectful and uncalled for. Throughout the evening, she silently fumed and stared at me. My parents noticed and kept a watch on her, but I chose to take a break from her stares by going into the kitchen on the other side of the house to take my prescription privately. My aunt followed me into the kitchen, closing the door behind her. I realized right once this wasn't good. She was obviously inebriated. I discreetly began recording the interaction on my phone. Even if I screamed, nobody would hear me because the door was closed and everyone else was talking loudly in the other room. She began by asking if I liked being an attention hog and ruining her supper by humiliating her. I carefully tried to propel my wheelchair toward the entrance while apologizing and explaining that this was not my goal. I tried to say what she wanted to hear, hoping to make it to safety. She began raising her voice, accusing me of being envious of her success and fabricating my problem out of laziness. She started calling me every name in the book and screamed rubbish at me. I began to cry, pleading with her to let me go as I suspected she was experiencing a mental breakdown. I realized I needed to leave, but I couldn't do it in my wheelchair, so I tried to get out of it. Unfortunately, she became furious and pushed me back into the chair forcefully. She screamed that she was not finished yet and that liars like me deserved to be given a lesson. She began punching me in the face as hard as she could, dislocating my jaw. Then she tried to drag me out of the chair, dislocating my arm, but I fought back, and she was unsuccessful. She managed to roll my wheelchair over onto its side, causing my foot to become jammed under the footrests. Fortunately, my father noticed my disappearance, as did my aunt, and became concerned. He began looking for me. Later, he informed me that I let out a blood-curdling scream that could be heard across the dining room, forcing him and my mother to race toward the sound. By this point, I was beginning to lose consciousness due to discomfort. I recall my father rushing through the door. According to what I was told, he body-slammed and punched my aunt, his younger sister, to keep her down. My mother yelled for someone to phone 911, and my nephew did it instantly. My mother then untied me from the wheelchair and attempted to recall her first aid training. Meanwhile, my father forced my aunt to the floor, leaving her husband in full amazement and unsure what to do. When the police and paramedics arrived, they handcuffed my aunt. She screamed at my father, wondering how he dared to touch a woman, particularly his sister. My uncle attempted to defend my aunt, claiming they had no idea what had happened and suggesting that I had tipped over while attempting to attack her. He stated that his wife would never do such a thing unless provoked. He supposedly said even worse things, but my parents won't tell me what. I regained consciousness at this time, most likely as a result of the severe pain medication, but everything was still blurry because the medicine had left me disoriented. I was carried away in an ambulance while my aunt was sent to jail. At the hospital, they discovered that I had several shattered ribs, a dislocated arm, and a dislocated jaw. The punches also resulted in a concussion, but the most serious injury was to my foot, which snapped. I had cuts and scratches all over my body since my skin is so thin. Fortunately, none of the injuries required surgery. But due to my disease, I'll be in a cast for at least 10 weeks, followed by physical therapy. My ankle will probably be irreparably ruined. I feel guilty about ruining her life. I've received several voicemails from various numbers, all with her yelling about how I ruined her life and most likely their finances. My uncle is attempting to salvage his name by sticking by her side, but this appears to be a temporary measure, since he now wishes to divorce her. A few family members are making me doubt whether I did the right thing, therefore I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong here. Yes, we are getting a restraining order and filing charges. The prospect of her pursuing me again is too much to take. Some folks have also puzzled how I received pain medication while unconscious. As I previously stated, I believe I recovered consciousness as a result of the pain medication, although I don't recall much owing to the discomfort. I'll ask my folks for more information as soon as I can. They're reluctant to discuss how they found me or what happened because they'd rather bury those memories than have them haunt me. The video of the attack was turned over to the authorities and has been backed up on numerous platforms. I'm also considering suing because my insurance covers legal fees. TLDR, my aunt admitted me to the hospital and badly wounded me because she suspected I was faking my genetic illness for attention. I recorded the entire attack and shared it online when they said I was lying and attacked her. Everyone in the family has cut all ties with her, including her church. Her husband wants a divorce. So am I the moron that posted the footage and ruined her life? I worked 12 years for the family business, but my dad gave it to my sister and her fiancé, then begged for help when they abandoned him. I, 36F, was fired from the firm that my father had started only 8 months before. For background, I've been with the family firm for nearly 12 years. My grandfather on my father's side created a jewelry business that we own. It was passed down to my father, and I assumed it would come to me next. After all, I am the older sister, and I have been interested in business since I was a teenager. My father always told me that he expected me to someday take over the firm. My sister, 33F, never appeared interested in a profession. She only wanted to marry and start a kid. So if Dad was going to have an heir to the company, it was supposed to be me. This has always been taken for granted. There was no formal documentation of it, but I suppose I should have planned for anything similar. I had been my father's personal assistant for 12 years. I even abandoned my first job after only 2 years because I wanted to obtain real-world experience before joining my father. I did not want to come across as entitled. However, I left my job once my father requested me to start working for him. Despite everything I had done, I was kicked out of the firm in favor of my sister and her tremendously wealthy fiancé. My sister hadn't even been a member of the family for the previous 15 years. She made a few terrible actions, and my parents cut her off shortly after she turned 18. She had announced that she would not be attending college and instead wanted to explore and discover herself. That did not set well with my parents. They offered her an ultimatum: either attend college or leave. Being the type of person she is, she opted to leave and live with her partner at the moment. They ended their romance after only 6 months together. Then she showed up at our door, pleading to be allowed back into the family. Before she went, she told my parents a lot of terrible things, such as how she no longer needed them and how she would be better off without a family like ours. She also said that we were not good enough for her because her boyfriend's family had a much better financial situation than us. She had insulted and humiliated us before going away. When she returned, my father informed her that the terms he had imposed previously remained in effect. If she wanted to return, she would have to go to college and earn a degree, regardless of what she selected. Otherwise, she may stay outside. My sister attempted to argue and fight her way back into the family. But my father was resolute. She chose to depart again, vowing never to return. For the next 15 years, we only saw her at family gatherings and never communicated with her otherwise. We discovered information about her life updates from other relatives because she refused to speak with us directly. My mother and I attempted to contact her several times, but because we were on good terms with my father, she refused to speak with us. To her credit, she kept her word and never returned until my father chose to make touch with her again. During that period, she sorted out her life, but not in the way we expected. She never attended college since she wasn't interested. Instead, she lived with a friend for a period, acquired a job, and began working to support the life she desired. I believe that event helped her mature significantly. She changed jobs frequently, but for the past few years, she had worked at an advertising agency. Our family maintained track of her life through other relatives. She knew about us as well, thanks to the same family. My father became very ill about a year ago, and we were on the verge of losing him due to heart failure. The cardiologist informed us that his condition was serious and that he needed to make significant lifestyle adjustments. During this health scare, my father decided it was time to contact my sister and reconcile their relationship. By this point, my sister had matured significantly over the previous 15 years, and she finally accepted to rejoin the family. She came to see us alone, and we didn't chat much about her life because we were too occupied reminiscing about the past. She didn't want to make it all about herself, so she didn't reveal anything about what she'd been up to. The information we didn't obtain from her came from our relatives. We knew how she was doing professionally, but not much about her personal life. Anyway, she seemed pleased to be back, and we were all focused on the reconciliation of father and daughter. It was a really emotional reunion, and I was delighted at the time, not knowing what would happen next. When she returned to see us for the second time, she brought her fiancé, which surprised everyone. She informed us they'd been dating for 3 years and were only recently engaged. None of us in the family knew about it, so we didn't find out through our regular channels. They'd kept it under wraps. The flow of information was not one-sided. Thanks to our relatives, she knew our father had some health issues, but she had no idea how serious they were. That is why she had not visited us sooner, and she felt it was inappropriate to announce her engagement at the time. Now that everything had cooled down, she decided it was time to introduce him to the family, so she invited him along. He appeared like a pleasant guy, and I could tell he was wealthy. His clothes, watch, and shoes were all costly. I felt glad for my sister because it appeared that she had finally found someone who fit her expectations. He was financially secure, had a clear vision for his life, and had his future planned out. After speaking with both of them, we discovered that her fiancé, like her first boyfriend, was the son of a wealthy man who operated a fast food franchise. Unlike her first relationship, this guy looked serious about her, and they were clearly in love. I was truly thrilled for her and complimented both of them. I never expected my father, or even my sister and her fiancé, to do what they did next. However, after only 3 weeks of knowing him, my father believed it was best if they take over the family business. He contacted me one morning and asked me to come home so we could chat about something. I was at work, running everything since my father's heart health had deteriorated, and I was essentially the boss at that point, even though he hadn't officially resigned. I knew retirement was imminent, and I was convinced that I would be the next in line to take over as CEO. But that day altered everything. Suddenly, my sister and her fiancé were in the running to take over the business I had been running for years. When I arrived at my parents' house, my sister and her fiancé were not present, but my parents were, and they looked grim. After some casual chat, my father dropped the bombshell. I initially assumed he was joking, but when I learned he was genuine, I couldn't believe it. When I inquired why he would make such a radical decision after just 3 weeks of knowing him, he said he had reasons but refused to discuss. After much fighting, Dad finally revealed that he thought my sister and her fiancé would be better at operating the firm than I was. The cherry on top was that he thought gifting them the business would be a welcome gift to bring them back into the family, as they were about to begin a new chapter by getting married. He thought this would be their wedding gift. I attempted to persuade him that this was a terrible idea. A wedding gift doesn't have to be the size of an entire business simply because the guy appeared wealthy. In addition, my father had always told me that when he retired, I would inherit the firm. I had formed my entire life around that expectation, and now he was taking it away from me to give to individuals who had been out of our lives for 15 years. I tried to tell him that maybe he could make us business partners and bargained and negotiated with him because we were talking about my future. But my father was adamant that it would be better if they took over. He contended that because my sister's fiancé's father had previously established a successful business, they would be able to grow our jewelry business twice as quickly as I could. I begged him for just one opportunity, but he wouldn't listen. I was heartbroken. Not just because I was losing something so important, but also because I had dedicated 12 years of my life to the business only to wind up with nothing. Worse, I still hadn't won my father's respect. If he had truly recognized the time and effort I had put into the firm, he would not have dismissed me. That was the day I resolved to cut all links with my family because I had nothing else to say to them. I had hoped my sister would fight for me, but she also let me down. She and her fiancé eagerly received the so-called wedding gift, which was effectively my life's labor. My sister knew I'd always aspired to take over the family business after my father retired. I had talked about it non-stop since I was 13. She knew exactly what she was doing when she took that gift. She was snatching my dreams and transforming them into her own. To make matters worse, she took to social media to thank our parents for the magnificent wedding gift and then used the post to announce her engagement. The most upsetting aspect of it was that no one from the family contacted me after that. When I left my father's house, it felt as if everyone had stopped caring about me. I felt used, and it appeared that the 12 years I had spent in the business had been completely wasted. Fortunately, I had enough savings to fall back on. For the following few months, I did nothing except try to put my life back together. Everything had fallen apart. That happened 8 months ago. Since then, I began therapy because I could feel myself slipping into depression and knew I wanted to treat it before it worsened. Seeing my sister's social media posts made me nauseous, so I blocked her. I also informed my relatives that I was no longer in contact with my family and did not want to hear anything about them, no matter how important the news. They followed my desires and kept everything a secret from me. As a result, I had no notion that my father's health had been slowly declining over the previous few months. My sister and her fiancé seem unconcerned about it. I only found out a week ago, when my father contacted me from the hospital. He informed me that he had suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of the night and asked me to come see him. Because I had banned his number, he called me using someone else's phone. I felt awful for a moment, but then I remembered what he had done to me 8 months before, and the remorse subsided slightly. After that phone call, I promised to come meet him immediately. I dropped everything and headed to the hospital. When I arrived, my mother and father were present, but my sister and her fiancé were nowhere to be found. I found this perplexing because I assumed they were close, especially since they ran the family business. I couldn't help but ask my parents where my sister and her fiancé were as soon as I walked into the hospital room. With great regret, my father informed me that my sister and her fiancé had both claimed to be too busy to come. I was shocked. Running the business for 12 years taught me that it was a profitable venture that almost ran itself. Unless there was a serious catastrophe, there was no reason to be at work all the time. That's how it worked when I was in control. I couldn't say how things were going under their control, but when my father said they were too busy to see him, I inquired whether they had paid him any visits since his heart attack. He admitted they had not. He had contacted them, but they had only texted back, stating they were too busy and would come after he was discharged. These details astounded me, and I could tell my father recognized he had made a huge mistake in handing over the reins of the firm to my sister and her fiancé. He explained that one of the main reasons he called was to apologize for what he had done. He stated that he felt guilty and sorry for pushing me out of the firm despite all of my hard work and effort. Now he wants to make things right by inviting me back into the family and the business. He described how heartbroken he was when my sister and her fiancé did not arrive at the hospital. He realized that they didn't care about him in the same manner that he cared for them. He also informed me that this was not the first time they had refused to show up for him. They had become increasingly estranged in recent months. After he handed over the firm, their visits grew less frequent. They used to come every other day to check on him when his health began to deteriorate, but now they claim they are too busy with work to come by. This did not set well with him, or me, because we both know no one is *busy. It wouldn't have been difficult for them to take an hour out of their day, especially given they lived just a few blocks away from my parents' house. My father had said nothing at the moment, but they had passed a limit, and he could no longer take their contempt. He wanted to reclaim his firm and give it to the person who actually deserved it. Me. We discussed everything in the hospital room, and he formally invited me back into the firm. I was overjoyed. My father apologized for everything, and while I wasn't fully over it, I forgive him since gaining back what I had worked for meant everything to me. If forgiving my father was the price, I was willing to pay it. The difficulty now is that my father had previously discussed this with my sister. He informed her he wanted her to leave the business because he had discovered that, while he had always cared for her, she had never been there for him. He couldn't stand the disrespect any longer, so he resolved to reclaim the company and give it to the rightful owner. He told her that they'd have to look after themselves. Unsurprisingly, my sister was upset. For whatever reason, she blamed me for everything. She contacted me this morning and lashed out, accusing me of being a horrible person and said she couldn't believe I would be so rude to her. I'm not really sure why she's acting so crazily. I think there's something we don't know, but she's acting as if she's lost everything. And it's all my fault. The reality is, I believe this is her own fault. She chose not to see our father after he suffered a cardiac arrest, which is a dangerous situation. She could have taken time off work to visit him. She was the one acting selfishly, and now I'm receiving what I've always deserved. 8 months ago, she had no trouble receiving a present she knew she didn't deserve. So why should I turn my back on something I actually deserve? She was devastated, and I tried to console her, but she hung up mid-sentence. Now I'm wondering if I'm the evil guy here. I feel like I'm constantly taking the blame, and I'm fatigued. Am I a jerk for allowing my father to ask my sister and her fiancé to leave the family business so that I could retake it? Update 1. Thank you all very much for your responses. I felt I didn't deserve my sister's criticism, but hearing it from you has reassured me. If people who know nothing about our lives believe I deserve the business, I have nothing further to say in my defense. I don't think I have to either. It's been a few days since I last spoke with my sister and I haven't heard back. The good news is that she hasn't blocked me on any platform, so I suppose that's a good indication. I can't shake the notion that there's more going on than she's admitting. I find it difficult to imagine that someone with a wealthy fiancé would act in this manner simply because they lost control of our firm. I believe that not everything is as it appears with her fiancé. Some of you inquired about this in the comments section of the original piece, but I did not address it since I did not believe it was important at the time. Now, however, I assume her fiancé's family is struggling financially. According to what I've heard, his father's company has suffered considerable losses over the last year and has been unable to recover. I believe my sister and her fiancé saw our family business as an opportunity to sneak in and take over as a backup plan. I still don't understand why my sister reacted so strongly when she realized that I was being allowed to rejoin the company and she was being asked to step down. If her fiancé's family was still financially secure, she wouldn't have to be concerned. However, she was distraught, and something about the situation did not make sense. I have a hunch she will tell the truth shortly. Fortunately, my father never signed any agreements or contracts that would have legally passed the firm to my sister and her fiancé. That would have been disastrous. He remained CEO the entire time, with them reporting to him in the same position I had held. He had been educating them to take over, but it is now evident that this will not happen. I spoke with my father, who informed me that my sister is quite sad, but he cannot afford to worry about her sentiments right now. His primary objective is to transfer the business to me so that I can take control and manage everything. He's already working with a lawyer to create the required documentation, and I should be taking over very shortly. To be honest, I'm looking forward to the adjustment, and my sister's dramatic outbursts can't bring me down right now. Update 2. Hello everyone. It's been a few weeks since my last post, and I wanted to give you an update. I am now the new CEO of my father's jewelry firm. The transition is complete, and it feels fantastic to finally be in charge. There were some difficulties throughout the changeover, primarily due to my sister's intervention, but it's finally complete. My sister is not thrilled about any of this, and I can now confirm that my theory was true. She and her fiancé were attempting to establish a foothold in our family business, despite knowing that her fiancé's father's company was faltering. They saw the family firm as a safety net in case his father's company failed. Apparently, it was my sister's idea to persuade my father to reintegrate them into the family by transferring the firm to her fiancé. Unfortunately, my father fell for it. He revealed to me recently that he was not thinking clearly at the time. He was enticed by the thought that someone from a successful business family could run the company better than I could. My father first intended to keep me in my previous position, but when I stated unequivocally that I wanted to be the company's CEO or nothing, he became enraged. That's what caused the 8 months of anguish for both of us. Fortunately, my father came to his senses just in time to avoid a huge catastrophe. As it turns out, my sister's fiancé and his father's firm are in terrible difficulties, with their market credibility virtually wiped out. I'd heard reports that their business was likely to fail, but I didn't believe them. I assumed that if something significant happened, my father would contact me, and he expected me to do the same if I was aware. Unfortunately, neither of us contracted out, which was a poor decision. My sister recently revealed the truth. She contacted me soon before the move was complete, admitting that they needed work because they didn't know how long her fiancé's father could keep his firm running. She asked me for assistance. I told her I'd think about it, and I honestly don't mind hiring them. However, knowing their true goals from the outset, I can no longer trust them. That's what I'm fighting with right now. I want to help her, but how can I hire somebody I don't trust? I told her I needed time to make a decision, and she agreed to wait. Update 3. After careful consideration, I have chosen not to hire my sister and her fiancé. I know this may appear selfish to some, but I can't trust them. When my father offered them the business, they accepted without hesitation, and for 8 months, they had no sympathy or concern for anyone other than themselves. I do not want folks like that working with or around me. It was difficult, but I informed my sister that I couldn't assist her. As expected, she did not take it well. She came into my office the other day, threw a fit, and accused me of being callous and selfish. She even stated she regretted giving me the company back, which I thought odd because it was never her decision. It was my father's. Her assertion that she did me a huge favor by letting me take over the company was absurd. I might have tolerated her actions, but her statement irritated me. I informed her that she had never done me any favors, not now, nor in the past. She never cared about me, therefore she couldn't expect me to care about her right now. I calmly asked her to leave, but she refused and kept screaming at me, undermining me in my own office. At that point, I had no choice but to phone the police and have her removed. I'm too busy at work to deal with unnecessary drama. When the cops arrived, she didn't say much and eventually left. It's been a few days since the incident and I still haven't heard from her. I assume she'll leave us alone now, but even if she doesn't, I'm not worried. I'll get a restraining order if necessary. I agreed to open our relationship because my girlfriend wanted it, but it wrecked her life. My boyfriend, 24F, and I, 27M, chose to have an open relationship after 5 years of monogamy. We had dated in high school, but when I left for college, we broke up because I suspected she no longer liked me. Years later, Mom told me that she understood I needed to stretch my wings and enjoy my life while at college. While I was away at college, her mother became extremely severe after discovering she had a boyfriend and had lost her virginity. She wasn't permitted to hang out with friends or go anywhere, and because she was financially reliant on her mother, she stayed under her mother's control even when she started college. Meanwhile, I was out dating, having fun, and trying to enjoy life, but I still missed her, even if she was at home. When we first met and began dating again, she informed me about her mother's treatment and I told her about my college experiences. We moved in together in 2016 and have been living there ever since. Over the past year, she has expressed a desire to try new activities. I felt jealous at first, but then I understood. The first time we pondered beginning our relationship, the guy she was interested in turned out to be rather trash, so she opted against it. She recently made a new acquaintance at work and told me she wanted to spend time with him. They've been talking all the time, but they haven't had any sex yet. Meanwhile, I've been using dating apps, interacting with individuals, and attempting to form connections. However, I'm understanding more and more that I don't care about anyone else and only want to be with her. It's painful while I'm at work, and we don't see each other often during the week. Then, on weekends when I'm not working, she hangs around with him. I feel as if I've taken a back seat to this entire event, and I can't help but feel lonely and alone. Every time I tell her I'm uncomfortable, she wants to cancel everything and end our relationship. She has stated that she is aware that this is an itch that must be scratched, and that if she does not, she will be left wondering about it forever. I suppose all I need is someone to communicate my emotions to and help me work through how I feel. I have an appointment with a therapist, which should help a lot. We began our relationship on July 7, 2022, after 5 years of monogamy because she wanted to expand her sexual experiences after growing up in an incredibly conservative environment. There were setbacks since I'm highly monogamous and had difficulty meeting mates, but she was able to secure dates and encounters almost immediately. Things improved after I went to therapy and discovered healthy ways to communicate my emotions. Our connection remained strong, but it improved much more as I began sharing my emotions more efficiently. I ultimately met someone who was both a great friend and a fantastic sexual partner. Unlike my partner, I discovered that I couldn't have intimacy with strangers unless I had a link, and I didn't want any more sexual encounters because I grew up with a lot more freedom. My girlfriend, on the other hand, began to get jealous of my relationship with this new companion. She began interfering with our time together, contacting me frequently when I was with this person or initiating sex with me just as I was ready to leave. This behavior began to indicate a pattern for me. Before this year, my girlfriend was extremely responsible. She handled money well, even when we didn't have much. She worked a steady job with regular hours and had started college the previous fall to advance her career. However, prior to us starting our relationship, she began to regress. It began with her spending her whole income on tattoos and piercings, which I didn't mind because I enjoy external self-expression. But then she started antagonizing her bosses, arriving hours late or quitting work early without notice. This semester, her grades fell, and she gradually stopped attending class, until she had no idea when midterms or spring break were. She had no idea finals were over and the semester had ended. My girlfriend took a 2-month leave of absence from her job, stating it was for her mental health, about a month or two after I began to feel closer to my new partner. When I proposed therapy, she declined. She limited her encounters to one constant guy and began spending days with him at a time. This would have been a greater red sign if I hadn't begun working 12-hour swing shifts this year. She told me she hated being at home alone, and since I was gone so much, it made sense for her to find somewhere else to be while I was at work. Despite the fact that she does not own a car or a driver's license, she has begun to use meal delivery services. This made no sense, especially since I buy groceries and keep the house supplied with food. She was wasting my money because she was not working. It started to feel like she'd lost her sense of maturity. When I brought up money problems or the fact that she wasn't doing anything at home while I was at work, she became frustrated. She'd spend the entire day lying in bed, ordering food. Whenever I tried to have good conversations about my feelings in the relationship, she would shut off. She'd reply she hadn't noticed any changes and that I might be making things up in my head. Eventually, she quit her work without having anything else planned. This drove me to distance myself from her, both physically and emotionally, because I thought my relationship requirements were not being addressed. She noticed right away, presuming I was no longer attracted to her. She grew irritated because I stopped initiating intimacy and the quality of our relationship had worsened. I attempted to make things right by sharing my emotions and explaining why it was difficult for me to want intimacy from her. However, she insisted that I was simply calling her a problem. We no longer have closeness, let alone cuddling. We still talk a lot, but much of it revolves around her sexual partner. I barely see her anymore, and whenever I try to initiate intimacy, she always has an excuse. She's sleepy, on her period, or anything. When she attempts to initiate sex, it is usually at the most embarrassing or inconvenient times. All of the closeness has vanished, and we haven't had sex in about 2 months. I want to talk to her about it, but every time I bring it up, she gets irritated and threatens to end the relationship or claims I'm never satisfied. She continually tells me that I am the man she wants to marry and that she cannot imagine herself with anyone else, which complicates the matter even more. My working belief is that what I need in my life is maturity, and the partner I found exemplifies that: responsible, fun, and balanced. On the other hand, my girlfriend appears to be looking for mindless entertainment and availability, and her present boyfriend reflects this. He has no personal commitments, rarely works, and is always available. Whatever happens, I do not want to leave my girlfriend. I know who she was and who I fell in love with, but I'm not sure whether I care about who she is today. We've discussed the possibility of couples therapy once we've gotten our finances under control, but she doesn't seem interested. I really don't know what to do at this point. Update 1. The same day I wrote this, she received a call from her mother, the biggest enemy in her childhood. They've had surface-level contact since she left home, but her mother informed her that her brother was experiencing psychotic episodes as a result of years of seclusion. Her mother also acknowledged that she had realized how terribly she had raised her children and apologized to my girlfriend. This appeared to trigger something in her, and she let out a lot of resentment. She informed her mother that she was going to begin therapy because she recognized she was becoming like her and did not want to hurt others the way she had been abused as a child. I'm not sure how serious she meant it, because she was pretty emotional at the moment. However, while on break from her current job, which she started last week, she began looking for a second one. She stated that having too much free time this year had a detrimental impact on her, and she wanted to try to achieve emotional and financial stability. This is all great progress, but several people in the comments made valid points. Ultimately, I need to figure out what I truly desire. I understand that jumping from one relationship to another will not serve myself or anyone else in the long run. I've also realized that I deserve to establish limits and have a say in my own life. But I recognize that partnerships involve work, and that work must be shared. I need to do some serious thinking, and I'll provide an update if anything changes. Update 2. It's been a few months, so I thought I'd provide an update. About a week after the initial post, I recognized that things were not improving. I discussed it with some friends, and they all agreed it was time to break up. I knew it was ultimately my decision, but after reading all of the comments, I realized I needed to take charge of how I wanted to live my life. I broke up with her and stated why. I highlighted the things I wasn't happy with and the adjustments I'd like to see if we ever decided to get back together. She sobbed, and we spoke on the phone because we were never both home at the same time. She appeared to understand my reasoning and stated she would work on herself. As our lease expired, my roommate and I searched for a new place to live. She had expected she would move in with me, which I briefly pondered. However, I decided against it, especially when she went on a rant about how she wanted to destroy my friends after discovering they had encouraged me to quit my relationship with her. Finally, I informed her she couldn't come with me. She ended up moving in with the person she had been seeing, but she remained in touch with me. She never really tried to improve herself. Instead, she would constantly moan about how bad her new boyfriend was, drawing parallels to our previous relationship. She eventually recognized that how he treated her was harsh and toxic. I pointed out the parallels between her connection with him and the way she treated me. She made a half-hearted apology, but it didn't feel genuine. I returned to treatment and have been doing well ever since. My finances are more steady than they have been in years, and I am now dating the woman I was seeing previously. This is the easiest relationship I've ever had. Our communication methods are consistent, and we communicate affection in the same way. It was surprising at first since I had become accustomed to turbulence and dysfunction in past relationships, but dating her felt like finally having someone on my side, someone dependable and steady. It took time to break my codependent tendencies and learn that I'm entitled to my own space and freedom. With her encouragement, I resumed my interest and began going back to the gym. Reflecting on the prior 6 years, I realized how much I tolerated and sacrificed for my ex, which prompted me to lash out in fury. My therapist helped me realize that channeling my anger in that way wasn't good. So I've been working on being more productive and creative. Life now feels much more balanced and fulfilling. Cheated on my wife, now she's gone and pregnant with another man's baby. How can I get her back? I know, I'm aware of my faults. I know I screwed up. She and I had something beautiful. She is still the love of my life. We were together for 10 years, 2 dating and 8 married, but I made a huge mistake and cheated on her. It was just once, just one damn time. Somehow she found out. I never knew how because I haven't been able to talk to her since then. I guess she found something on my phone. I came home that afternoon as usual and everything felt weird. The house felt emptier. I quickly realized that her things were gone. I panicked. I started calling her over and over, but her phone didn't even ring. Suddenly I saw some papers on the table. She was divorcing me. Under the divorce papers, there was a note that said, "This is what you do with cheaters." That was the last thing I got from her, 2 years ago now. Of course I called the contact information for her lawyer, who has been the only bridge between us. But he just told me that he was her legal representative and that she didn't want to see me. I fought, I got angry, but in the end her lawyer just told me that it would be better if I got my own lawyer. I didn't want to. I absolutely refused to accept that 10 years of relationship would end like this. I know I have failed, but I always wanted to fix it. I know that if she gave me the chance, I could make that sweet and special girl I met more than 10 years ago fall in love with me again. I know that I can make her forgive me. After all, many couples go through similar things and get over it. Why can't we be one more couple in that statistic? Why after 8 years of marriage am I thrown away like garbage for a mistake? I don't deserve so much indifference. I haven't been able to see her or even hear her voice in 2 years. 2 years of not being able to see or talk to the person you love the most is too much of a punishment. This situation has destroyed me emotionally, mentally, and even physically. I ended up consuming an unhealthy amount of alcohol. Weeks of barely eating, not sleeping. I was a zombie for months. I was just functioning on automatic. I wanted to die, but I couldn't let myself die because I always held on to hope that she would come back. My therapist says it's really hard when you can't get closure from a relationship because your mind can't process that the relationship is over. So you're always thinking that person will knock on the door or that you'll wake up from sleep and they'll be there by your side. The divorce was finalized over a year ago. I'll be honest, I didn't make it easy. I didn't want to get divorced and I still don't understand how we can be divorced. I asked for couples therapy, but she refused. I know from my lawyer that her lawyer advised her to go at least once or twice, but she refused. It took quite a while, but finally the divorce happened. I can't even describe the feeling I felt and still feel, like if a piece of me had been cut out. I know I hurt her. I know I failed, but I think we all deserve a second chance. When I couldn't take the pain anymore, I decided to start therapy. My therapist doesn't give me advice to get her back. He only focuses on me moving on with my life, encouraging me to meet new people and go out on dates, but I don't want to. At this point, I'm not even interested in sex anymore. A few days ago, something happened that completely shattered me. I was having a few beers with my friend at my house. Let's call him Nick. We were both pretty drunk. I started talking about my wife. And he said to me, "You should put more effort into getting over her. She's over you and is happy having a life away from you. You should do the same. You can't live in this self-pity all your life." Something in his words hit me, but not in the way he expected. He spoke with a lot of confidence that my wife is over me and is happy now. How does he know that? At this point, I got angry and started pressuring him to talk. He refused. I pressed as hard as I could. I cried. I begged him to tell me if he knew something. I needed to know something about her. Until he finally told me. His wife has been in contact with my wife for the last year. They were great friends, and I remember Sabrina, my friend's wife, being very sad about losing contact with my wife. The thing is that my wife went to live in Norway, got married to a guy there, and is about 7 months pregnant. I felt like dying. I literally felt like dying with this information. How could she do this to me? How could it be that while I was crying, getting drunk, missing her and wanting to die every day, She was happily on the other side of the world, getting married, fucking and getting pregnant by another guy. How could it be that she didn't have a child with me in many, many years, to the point that I thought she was infertile, but she got pregnant by this new guy so easily? Where did this guy come from? I have no answers for absolutely anything, and I feel like I can't go on with my life without these answers. The only thing I can think of is that she had revenge sex with the first Norwegian guy she came across and got pregnant and decided to keep the baby. Maybe she got married because she wanted to stay in that country legally, and I guess like in most countries, getting married is a good option for that. I don't know. These thoughts are killing me. I refuse to think that she is in love with him. I need to contact her. I need to talk to her. I need to know what's going on, because she acts like our 10-year history and 8-year marriage is nothing to her. I need advice on how to act. I feel the impulse to travel to where she is and look for her, but how could I do that? I don't know what city she's in. I don't know where she lives. I don't have a number to contact her. She closed her social media. Her family is small. They don't live in the same country as me, and all of them blocked me. I'm totally lost. I don't know what to do at this point. I still want her back, yes, even pregnant. I feel like this is a nightmare and I need to wake up now. Edit. I read almost all the comments, and when I say almost all, I really mean almost all. It's hard to process all the crap that's been said about me. I feel like you guys forget that you are talking to a person and not an inanimate object. I thought I might find more empathy by sharing my story here. Just 2 people feeling empathy towards me in their comments made me feel better. I'm not looking for validation or for anyone to say that what I did is okay. I know it's not, and I have to live with that daily. I will try to respond, but of course I'll never be able to respond to all the comments over here. I guess none of you know what it's like to have a broken heart and not be able to get over a person. You don't decide who you love, and you don't decide when you get over someone. It will happen when it has to. Those who doubt my story, unfortunately, are real. I would love this to be fake, but sadly it is not, and I have to live with this mess every day. Everyone assumes she's happy now. I don't know. I mean, how do you know? I haven't seen her in 2 years. I can't have any idea if she's happier or not. Being pregnant doesn't necessarily mean happiness, and being married either. We don't really know the circumstances of this marriage. Maybe she got married because she got pregnant and felt alone in a country where she has no one, and she just holds on to the other guy. Of course I blame myself for this. This wouldn't have happened if I had been a better person and a better husband to her. But unfortunately I can't change what I did wrong. The only thing I could do is try to make it up to her. But how do you make it up to someone who doesn't want to give you the chance to do so? Some people said that she doesn't owe me a second chance. That was hard to read, but I understand that maybe she doesn't have to. I never openly blamed her for the infertility issues. It was just a thought. We both went to the doctor, and in both cases the tests revealed that everything was fine. I never understood why we couldn't conceive, and the thought that she was infertile did cross my mind, and of course the idea that I was too. But in most cases of infertility, it is due to a female factor. Maybe that's why I thought that. Horrible things were said, like I would hurt my ex-wife if she were here. I never physically hurt her, and I never will. I am not an abusive person. I am not a monster. I know it's hard to empathize with me. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt her way beyond what I can say. But I am not a monster or a narcissist. Some people said that I never loved her, otherwise I wouldn't have cheated on her. This statement doesn't seem fair to me. You think you can kidnap the concept of love and tell another person what his real feelings are? You think you are inside my head or heart? Only then would you know what I feel. You can't tell me that I don't love her. There hasn't been a day since she left that I don't regret it. No one can tell me this isn't love. Lastly, humans are more complex than most people here think. Just because I cheated on her doesn't mean I don't love her or that I don't have feelings. I called what I did a mistake because how else would I call it? I thought part of accepting blame is accepting that it was my mistake. But everyone here takes those words as if I am trying to twist the situation, when that's not the case. You've completely twisted my words. I know how much I hurt her. Maybe in my post I'm focusing on myself because I was never able to explain myself to her. Since then, for me, it's been one attempt after another to put together a story in my head that doesn't make sense. I lost everything from one moment to the next. I simply tried to be open with my feelings, but it doesn't seem to work here. Not for me, at least. I know the damage I did to her. This woman left her life, the country she emigrated to, her friends, even her job. No one does that for a breakup unless you're going through some level of absolute pain. I understand that. I can see and feel the pain I put her through, and that makes me feel even more guilty. Honestly, I'm going to respond to some comments below and then log off of Reddit for a couple days until I feel in a better place. Relevant comments. Commenter, I want to know who you cheated on her with. That's pretty important information. OP, it was a radon woman that used to go to the same gym. Nothing important. It didn't mean anything, not even for a second. I was just being an idiot. Commenter, you don't seem to have any remorse for cheating, just mentioned she somehow found out. So you were not planning on telling her? It's been 2 years, you need to accept responsibility for your actions and let go. She's never coming back. There's billions of people out there. Just heal and improve yourself with therapy, and I'm sure you'll get a second chance with someone else. You're only 35. OP, I do feel remorse for cheating. I'm a big mess right now, but I do feel remorse. Commenter, you may still be in love. She is not, at least not with you. OP, so love just fade away? Just like this? At the end of the day, this sometimes makes me feel like I'm actually more loyal than her to our relationship. Meaning, she left, remarried, got pregnant. Looks like she completely forgot about me, and I'm here crying while I drink some wine and respond to some strangers on Reddit about our relationship. I still love her, but for her it was so easy for her over me. Commenter, if only half the people on Reddit had the self-respect your ex-wife has. OOP, I don't blame her. I understand the pain I caused her. But I also think there are many couples who go through this and move on, especially when it was just one time. I never had a side relationship for months. I didn't cheat on her with multiple women. I didn't get another woman pregnant. I didn't cheat on her with her friend. Cheating is wrong, but are you really going to put me on the same level as a guy who cheated on his wife for years, or who cheated on his wife with her sister? It's not an excuse, but I'm asking for some coherency here. Update. Same post 2 days later. These days have been very strange. At times I feel numb and at others desperate. A lot of things have happened. I want to start by answering something and then I will update. Some people asked why Norway. I don't know exactly, but she is a polyglot. She speaks 6 languages. Many of these languages are connected to cultures that she always liked. Norwegian is just one of them. She has always been interested in Norwegian culture. She has been there before, but she is also interested in other cultures and speaks other languages, so for me that was never an indicator that she might have gone to this country. Regarding the update, the first thing I will say is that the post reached some people in my circle. Sabrina's sister is on Reddit. She knows the story and realized it was me. She told Sabrina. Sabrina is angry at Nick for revealing information. Nick is angry at me for posting on Reddit, and because he says I pressured him to talk. I am angry at both of them for being two holes who watched me suffer for 2 years and decided not to help me. They didn't care about my marriage. Why should I care about their marriage? Sabrina could have given me my ex-wife's phone number a long time ago, but she decided to prioritize her friendship with my ex instead of helping 2 friends mend their marriage. Meanwhile, no one cared about my feelings. I'm done with them at this point. Regarding my ex-wife, I've been thinking a lot. She can't just disappear. I convinced myself that if I searched hard enough I could find something related to her. I follow some of her relatives from a fake Instagram account, but I never found anything related to her. I searched a lot, really a lot, and found a name that I had seen before, but that hadn't caught my attention until then. It was a lady with a name that is not typical in the United States or my wife's country. She is not American, and a very strange last name. I went to her Instagram profile and she had no pictures or anything, just a small profile picture that you can barely see. I decided to look her up on Facebook and found the same lady with the same profile picture. Only her Facebook profile is quite open. She is indeed a lady from Norway. I checked everything I could on this profile and I was convinced that it had something to do with my wife. How else would a relative of hers have this woman in their friends? I saw a lot of pictures, people, plants, mountains, gardens, lakes, flowers, typical things that an older lady posts. Until I came across a picture where my ex was dressed as a bride hugging a guy. I had to translate the text. The lady was congratulating her son on his wedding. There were a few more pictures, not many. There were even some members of my ex's family in the wedding pictures. The dates of the pictures were from a year ago. A year ago she married this guy. I don't understand. How could it happen so fast? When did she meet him? I honestly thought she got married after she got pregnant, not before. This baffles me even more. After that I found another picture. It was a group picture and she was far away, but of course I recognized her. The same guy was with his hands on her shoulders, hugging her. This picture was from February 2023. To be clear, she left in May 2022. How is she with someone in February 2023? Only 9 months and she's already in a stable enough relationship that he's introduced her to his family? What the hell is going on here? I feel like I have even more questions in my head now. I know I shouldn't be upset, but I am. I know I lost her because I was an idiot, but it's hard to get this feeling out of my head right now. Anyways, for those who had imagined this fantasy that my ex is with some kind of Norwegian Chris Hemsworth, let me tell you, it quote s not like that. This guy is too tall, too blonde, too pale, hair too long and kind of chunky, to be honest. He looks more like the old cartoon of Vikings and is definitely not a Chris Hemsworth. I managed to find his FB profile, but he has almost nothing there. His profile says he's an engineer who wears metal band t-shirts at 38. I don't know how to take this because I'm an engineer myself, just in a different field. Why would she look for a man with the same profession as me? My wife has always liked heavy metal, which I always found nasty, but I never complained. After all, your partner doesn't have to have the same musical tastes as you. I mention this because maybe that was the way they connected. She used to connect easily with people who liked the same type of music. I don't know, but I honestly look at it and think, where did she get this guy from? I meant he can definitely do better than this. The pregnancy thing still messes with my head. I try not to think about it. I can't understand it. I'm not infertile like the comments suggest. I've been to the doctor and I know I'm not. But God, it kills me to think that she's going to have another man's child. I don't get it. I feel like this is beyond anything I ever imagined. And no, I'm not going to go to Norway. I'm not going to try to contact her. I still want to see her and talk to her. But I obviously can't force her to do that. I have too much to deal with right now and too much to talk about in therapy. If by any chance this post reaches my ex, I want you to know that I still love you. You know where to contact me. If by any chance this post reaches the new dude, I want you to know the only reason you have a chance with this woman is because a big idiot halfway across the world completely ruined it. You most probably met a woman who was probably very broken from her divorce. You took advantage of her situation and trapped her with a baby. You don't know how to play fair. Am I the asshole for charging my friend $700 after she demanded that my free wedding cake didn't count as a gift? Now everyone's furious. I, 34F, have a friend, who I'll call Mary, 33F, who is getting married in 2 weeks. She and I have been friends for several years, and I was excited when she asked me if I could make her cake. I don't normally do cakes anymore for people outside of family and friends, as I'm currently pregnant, have 1-year-old, and am currently pursuing another master's degree in education administration so I can be a school principal, because teaching is a dead end without an admin license, unfortunately. At the time when she asked, I was also teaching full-time and finishing up a different master's program. Anyway, I agreed to make this cake over a year ago. I told Mary when she offered to pay that I would do it for free as my wedding gift to her. I distinctly said wedding gift. She accepted, and we started planning the design. Mary wanted a 4-tier cake with each tier a different flavor: white, chocolate, yellow, lemon, and several sugar flowers and fondant decorations, as well as 3 different flavored buttercreams. It was a lot, but since she is having an August wedding, I had time because school would be out for summer, and I am actually taking a year off since finding out I was pregnant a few months ago. Saturday, I went to Mary's bachelorette party. The party itself was fine. Nothing remarkable happened. I couldn't drink, but everyone had fun. One of Mary's bridesmaids asked what we all were getting her for her wedding. I said I was making the cake for free. The bridesmaid and other girls there said that was a good gift because cake is expensive and they wished they had gotten one for free. That's it, and I heard nothing else about it until today. Mary texted me and asked why I wasn't getting her a wedding gift. I told her I was, and that it was the cake, and reminded her that the cake was free. She said that wasn't a gift and that it's a favor. I told her it's a gift and that she can't tell me what I can gift her. I then asked why she was mentioning it, and she said the bridesmaid I spoke to Saturday told her that she was so lucky to get a free cake. She agreed, but then was upset when the bridesmaid said, "That's a good gift." I asked her if her own bridesmaid thinks it's a good gift, what's the problem? And she said it's not up to the bridesmaid to tell her what her gifts are. I told her this is her gift. She said that a gift needs to be something she can use in her marriage, not just the cake at the wedding. I told her with me going to school and not working right now that this is a major expense that I'm taking on by doing it for free, and she said that wasn't her problem and that a real friend would do both. I responded with, "Fine, I'll get back to you," and she thanked me for understanding. About 30 minutes later, I sent her a bill for her cake. The bill was for $700 with a deposit of $350 due by this Friday and the rest 24 hours before the event start time. She asked me what that was for, and I told her since it's not a gift, she needs to pay for it. She said she couldn't afford it, and I told her I didn't care and this is what business looks like. I did promise to get her a gift off of her registry though. She told me no cake is worth $700, but in the bill breakdown, I pointed out where it was going from ingredients to transportation. Her venue is 45 minutes away. Additional labor, my husband helps me deliver cakes, so he's getting paid too. Last minute booking, time, and the size of the cake on top of the intricate decorations she wants. She said she shouldn't be charged for anything since I promised to do it for free, and it's too late to find another baker. I said, that sounds an awful lot like not my problem. Because it isn't. She then asked if I could just do the cake for free and forget the gift, but I said no, this is the new deal, and I have not responded to her texts since. She and her fiancé were venting in a group message with the wedding party that I'm not in. One of the bridesmaids, who is a mutual friend, asked me what happened after telling me what was being said in the group text, and I sent her the messages of our exchange, and now apparently, the bridal party is now divided. Some are saying I should go back and do the cake for free like I originally promised, while others are telling Mary she was wrong, and apparently it's become a huge ordeal. Her fiancé is now mad at both of us for being petty and ridiculous. My husband is on the team, Mary can suck an egg, and doesn't think I should do the cake or get the gift. But he told me to remember this could cost me a friendship, but he'd support me either way. But he thinks I should stand my ground in this, and not let Mary push me around. However, my husband also doesn't really like Mary for unrelated reasons, so he may be biased. AITA for charging my friend for the cake and refusing to do it for free after she got mad at me. ETA, burner account because I'm pretty sure Mary has Reddit for the wedding subs. Update, I posted a new post with an update. It was too long to add to this one. It's in this sub though. I read as many comments as I could. TBH, I did not expect the amount of responses I got and responded to who I could. This post was originally going to be answering as many repeat questions as I could, but this morning, a mutual friend, my bridesmaid, I'll call Pam, messaged me today to give me an update. Mary and her fiancé, I'll call Frank, are currently not on speaking terms because they got into an argument last night. It wasn't directly because of the cake, but what the cake debacle revealed to Frank. Apparently, Mary has been spending a lot of his money on this wedding. Now, we all kind of already knew that. Mary told us Frank and his family would be footing the bill. He's an engineer and his family has a lot of money. I'm not exactly sure what their family wealth is from, but it was enough to pay out of pocket for him and his siblings to go to expensive universities debt-free. What we didn't know is that they've been arguing about the finances this entire time, and my cake was the last straw for Frank. Mary's budget for their wedding was $30,000 and she's apparently spent almost double that on intricate flowers, her wedding dress, decorations, engagement photos, catering, open bar, entertainment, and flying her family in and paying for their accommodations. The venue alone took a good chunk of their money because of the size and location, an hour away from where we all live. It's a large house, maybe considered a mansion, I can't remember, with several acres of land, horses, a lake, and a field for wedding photos. The entire wedding party is supposedly staying there for a few days leading up to the wedding. I've not seen it in person. Again, I'm not in the wedding party and never was. But the photos online make it obvious why it's so expensive. I had no idea they had spent that much, and neither did anyone in the wedding party. As far as we all knew, the most expensive thing Mary had bought was her wedding dress to the tune of $5,000. I only know because I went with her to try some on with other friends and bridesmaids. Pam's fiancé is one of Frank's groomsmen, and Frank's been venting to the groomsmen in texts about how much this is costing, and he's not sure he wants to do this anymore. However, he feels compelled to because the money has been spent and is non-refundable. But he said he didn't know Mary would be this way about a wedding because she typically sticks to budgets, which is true. Literally everyone is surprised by how much she is supposedly spending, including my husband and me. Mary is the person who gets everything off-brand at the store to save $1 even when she really doesn't need to. From what Pam told me, Mary asked him to just pay me so she could have the cake, and he said no, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he was tired of spending money on just one day. He told her to figure it out herself. So nobody knows what is going on anymore, or if there will even be a wedding. No one has reached out to me about making the cake either, and my husband, for those wondering, is still the teen Mary can suck an egg. Before anyone asks, no, Mary did not grow up poor. She was very much middle class like I was, and she's never been broke or anything. She also never seemed like she wanted overly expensive stuff. She drives a 10-year-old sedan that, despite Frank saying she needs a new car, she won't get rid of because it runs fine, and my dad taught me to drive my cars into the ground. So believe me when I say it really is out of character for her to be this nonchalant about money. I'm not sure if I'll have another update. If I do, it'll be after the wedding, if there is one. ETA. I know a lot of people are saying things about Mary just using Frank for his money, but at the same time, I want to remember that Pam only gave me Frank's side via what he's been telling the groomsmen. I have no idea what part he played, and if this really actually bothered him up to this point, or if he's ever mentioned the amount she's been spending to her. It's now 6 p.m. and I've not spoken to or heard from Mary since yesterday after giving her the quote, so I don't have anything else to add other than my perspective. It really does sound out of character for Mary to be doing this, but I remember when I got married that my husband said he wanted me to have what made me happy for our wedding. So if he's been telling her what my husband told me and still giving her money, then he's definitely not an innocent party IMO. Last update. So I didn't expect this to actually get read on Charlotte's channel, but since it did, I'll let everyone know what ended up happening. And yes, it's confusing. Long story short, the villain in this situation isn't Mary. It's Frank. And no, they did not get married. If you want to read the first two updates, they're the only other two posts in my profile. And this update is all the information I've gathered from bridesmaid Pam and her fiancé, so bear with me. Most of this is what Mary has told Pam, who then related to me. Anyway, I mentioned before that Mary was, and still is, a frugal person. That's why we all thought the gift and cake thing was weird, as well as her spending a bunch of money for the wedding. It turns out that Mary has actually been trying to save money despite doubling their budget. Apparently, Frank's family always throws extravagant celebrations and parties. That includes birthdays, holidays, graduations, and weddings. So Frank has been emphasizing to Mary that this wedding is supposed to be huge because that's just how his family is. I'm guessing it's a way to flaunt success, but that's just a guess. I don't actually know the real reason. But Frank has been hands off the entire time. I'm not surprised. My own husband only cared about the food, cake flavor, and that the colors weren't pink. But Frank has been telling Mary to save money since that's what she's good at, and that he didn't want to spend a bunch of money on one day. So Mary picked out things that were cheaper but were not good enough for Frank. Like that mansion large house where everyone would be staying. Yeah, Frank's idea. Mary apparently wanted to do a hotel that hosted weddings because her family could stay there for less money, and the hotel was just cheaper to host a wedding versus a literal mansion with horses. He would do this with everything and veto things like her choices of decorations and vendors because they weren't big enough, or I'm guessing extravagant. He even told her how big her bouquet had to be and that her dress needed to have lots of bling. So basically, Mary has been trying to stick to the budget, but what was in the budget didn't match Frank's taste or expectations. So when I said she had to pay for the cake, Frank accused Mary of not saving the money despite her being so money conscious. And Mary wasn't the one who had the problem with the cake. It was Frank. I guess they both knew the cake was free, but Frank didn't know I was making it as a gift. Mary explained that I was, and he said that didn't count and to ask me about it. He said it didn't count because friends doing favors for an event like a wedding isn't a gift. On some level she must have agreed because she didn't mention Frank being the one with the problem at all in the messages, but whatever. Anyway, the cake was what Mary was really looking forward to because it was the only thing she felt she had 100% say in regarding the wedding. And when I charged her for it, Frank was upset that Mary was not saving them money like he was expecting. This resulted in a fight where they ended up not on speaking terms. When Frank was complaining to Pam's fiancé and the rest of the groomsmen, it was in text and, according to Pam, Mary found them and left Frank for making her seem like a greedy bitch to everyone when she was only getting things Frank wanted without Frank's help. And that if it were up to her, they wouldn't have most of the expensive things she bought for the wedding. The only contact I've had from Mary was an apology text message. When I told her it was okay and we were still friends, she didn't answer. In fact, she hasn't answered anyone other than to tell the wedding party that the wedding was off, apologize for the inconvenience, and since then, she's been quiet. She did post on her social media a long apology for canceling. She said postponed, but I noticed her relationship status is gone. But the location/check-in is in the hometown where her parents live, not where we live, so I think she went back to her parents' house after calling off the wedding. But that's all I know, and I heard it secondhand from Pam. But according to Pam, Frank is upset Mary left because all his money is tied up in vendors that he can't get back and has been trying to plead his case with the groomsmen. But only his brother is on his side. Pam's fiance and the other groomsmen have stopped talking to him. Also, I heard Charlotte asking why Mary wasn't paying for the wedding too. I can't answer that, but Mary works as an STNA and doesn't make a lot. Her bachelor's was in psychology, and she never went on to get her doctorates, so getting employed in her field isn't very easy. I also don't know if they're still together. Mary didn't say they broke up, just that the wedding was postponed. Cancelled. I apologize if this confused anyone, but I'll try to answer anything I can in the comments. Just remember, I heard most of this secondhand besides the apology I got from Mary and the post she made online, so I may not have all the answers. Edit. Changed Pam's husband to Pam's fiancé. Sorry, I wrote this in a rush and was trying to keep up with the fake names for privacy. Relevant comments. Comment 1. I don't understand the connection between Mary wanting a gift and a free cake to Frank Villainous. Like, isn't Mary still wrong for asking for a gift? OOP she is. But she apologized and I accepted it. The only part I'm not clear on is how it even came up as a conversation between her and Frank. It might have just been casual, but she may have also been talking on speakerphone. I do that with my husband in the room, so he hears my conversations sometimes, even if he's not part of it. But it sounds like Frank was mad that they were now paying for the cake when he thought it would be free and the goal was to spend little money for nice stuff. I'm guessing that if I agreed to do the cake and gave them a bill from the beginning instead of volunteering to do it for free, I would be dealing with "that's too expensive for a cake," or "we're friends, I should get a discount." Like they would have been negotiating from the start regardless. And I've had people pull those lines on me before. That's another reason why I rarely make cakes for people even if they offer to pay, because they still want some type of discount and get mad when I don't give one. Comment 2. Arguably the best part about this is that she apologized to you. But it also answers some questions that your other posts left open. But the one you didn't answer: is your husband still team Mary can suck an egg? OP. No. My husband, despite not liking Mary, thought this was strange behavior from her too. So when he found out that Frank's been lying, or at least not wholly honest, about everything, his team Frank can kick rocks with no shoes on. My husband likes idioms. Dad gave the business to my brother-in-law instead of me at his retirement party. Now they're asking me for help after fraud charges. My father retired 2 years ago as the CEO of the lab equipment company he founded. He had assured me for nearly 7 years that I, 30M, would become the next CEO. But on the day of his retirement celebration, he announced that my brother-in-law would be the new CEO. It came as a tremendous surprise to me because I was the one who had planned the party, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I clapped along with everyone else as he delivered the announcement, but then I challenged him. He explained why he let me down. Apparently, my brother-in-law, Zach, 34M, was more of a son to him than I was, as I had disappointed him. Let me tell you that Zach had only been in the business for approximately a year, whereas I had devoted 7 years of my life to it. We had known Zach for a long time, since he and my sister, 33F, had been dating for about 5 years and married for 2. When my father retired, I worked with Zach, and he seemed like a kind guy. Still, I couldn't accept the reality that my father thought Zach was more of a son than I was. When I asked my father to expand on how I had failed him, he answered the most ridiculous thing I could think of, and I lost all respect for him. He explained that it had been a difficult decision, but he had to do what was best for the company. He said that someone as mentally weak as I was could never be a competent leader. That's why he passed me aside in favor of Zach, who he thought had more attributes in common with him. He was alluding to my diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, which I had mistakenly disclosed to my family a few months before my father retired. One night, while eating dinner with my parents, I accidentally dropped a little container of anti-anxiety medications that had been prescribed to me. I needed to explain everything to them. My mother was cool with it, but my father did not believe in the value of mental health. He thought that being tough was the answer to everything, and when I told him about my nervousness, he began to lose faith in me. I'd like to stress that my anxiety had never harmed the quality of my job, nor had I allowed it to impair my capacity to run the company. I'm sure many people in upper management deal with anxiousness without having it affect their work. But my father told me I had disappointed him by making excuses for my weakness and turning to medications. After much deliberation, he concluded that Zach was the ideal choice to take over the company instead of me. He told me I could quit if I wanted, but he didn't trust me to manage the company the way he did. He refused to give me the reins since I had demonstrated that I was not strong. It wasn't only what he said, it was also that he had encouraged me to assume I would be the next CEO, despite the fact that he had made his decision well before the retirement party. It was quite hurtful. That night, I left the celebration early and never spoke with my father again because he had deeply injured me. At the end of the day, it was his company, and he could hire anybody he believed was the greatest fit. If he felt that my nervousness would get in the way, I had to respect his decision. However, I didn't have to put up with that type of rudeness. So I decided to resign, and within a few weeks, I began working elsewhere. My mother was the only family member I kept in touch with. When my sister learned that I was retiring because I was furious that my father had appointed Zach as CEO instead of me, she interpreted it as a personal attack. Instead of attempting to understand where I was coming from, she contacted me to defend my father, and we got into a fight. After that, we stopped speaking. I haven't spoken to my father or sister in 2 years, and I haven't had any touch with Zach. I occasionally speak with my mother to see how she's doing. We try to meet at least once a month, and each time we do, she attempts to persuade me to make amends with my father. But I'm simply not interested. My mother contacted me about a week ago, quite frantic. She informed me that Zach had been arrested for fraudulent actions, notably tax fraud. My father was also under scrutiny because of his former affiliation with the corporation. That upset me, but I had no idea what she expected me to do. She wanted me to speak with my father, smooth things out, and testify for him in court if required, because I had previously worked for the company. I was very clear with my mother that I was not going to get engaged in any way. I was confident that if my father was being examined, all of the company's upper management would be scrutinized as well. If Zach had committed fraud, it was a severe allegation, and I did not want to go into the specifics. All I knew was that the farther I got away from this disaster, the better off I would be. So I made it obvious to my mother that I was not going to stick my neck out for my father. They'd have to deal with it on their own because I didn't want any problems. Besides, if my father genuinely wanted my assistance, he should have approached me directly. He's the one who needs me, so why should I be the one to contact him first? My mother then told me that I was being childish and petty, and that I needed to speak with my father and clear the air since the family needed to keep together during this tough time. I felt she was being ridiculous, so I told her my decision was definite. I was not going to reach out to my father at any cost. She became enraged and accused me of being selfish and uncaring because, even though the family was going through a lot, all I cared about was what happened 2 years before. I thought it was very insensitive of her to say so. If she had been in my situation, she would have felt as betrayed as I did, and she would not have been able to move on as soon. She would not have forgiven my father if she had been passed up for a position for which she had worked hard for nearly 7 years due to circumstances beyond her control. It's unreasonable to ask me to forgive him, especially because my father has never even tried to apologize for what he did to me. I don't think anyone can forgive someone who doesn't apologize in the first place. So my mother and I argued for a time. Eventually, I informed her that this was definitely karma for screwing me over, and that whatever was going on with Zach and my father right now, they deserved it. My mother went silent and eventually hung up. I felt horrible for saying that, so I planned to call her back a few hours later. But then I discovered she'd blocked me. I now feel extremely bad about what I said. Am I an asshole for claiming that my father was definitely suffering retribution for passing me over for the CEO position? Update 1. Hello everybody. My mother blocked me 1 week ago, and I still haven't been able to contact her. I'm trying not to feel guilty about it, but there's really not much I can do. She was the only person who kept in touch with me during the last 2 years, and without her, I feel completely lost and alone. Of course, I have my friends to rely on, and they have all been there for me. But my mother was the one person in my family that looked out for me, and I no longer had her. It's difficult coming to terms with this, and I truly want to contact her. However, I still believe that I have done nothing wrong. I don't think I said anything out of line, and I believe this is karma for booting me out of the firm for something I had no influence over. Yes, I have an anxiety issue, but as I previously stated, it is not crushing. It has no bearing on my leadership skills or ability to work as well as everyone else. It did not make me a disappointment, as my father said. Whether people like it or not, words have meaning. What my father told me on the night of his retirement party has stayed with me for the past 2 years. His unsophisticated approach about mental health and its relevance severely harmed my self-esteem for several months. I continued doubting myself and questioning every decision I had made up to that moment. I felt like an imposter in my new work. It took a long time to get over that, and I'm still in treatment dealing with unresolved issues. However, my anxiousness has never impaired my capacity to work. In fact, I am one of the greatest employees at my current job, as my managers often tell me. They're even going to promote me soon. I genuinely believe my father made a significant mistake, and it is not my responsibility if my mother does not recognize this. It just sucks that she's choosing to side with him instead of telling him to fuck up and apologize to me. I don't understand why she believes I should make amends first. One thing is certain, I won't do anything for the family until they apologize for everything. And they must say it with sincerity. I refuse to be used again for selfish gain. Update 2. My sister stopped by to see me today, and it was stressful since she was emotional. She wants me to help her because her husband is in serious jeopardy, but I'm not sure what they expect me to do. My hands are tied here. This is a federal felony, and I don't think I can help them. She appeared to be in a bad situation, so I let her in. I tried to be as kind to her as possible because I am not a heartless person. I can't just slam the door when someone is in so much pain. She started crying on my shoulder, telling me she had no idea what was going on, and that if she had known, she would have stopped it right away. She's quite concerned about what will happen to him, and she wants me to use my connections to help him out. I informed her that, unfortunately, I do not have any such ties that would be relevant here. Then she stated that our father had told us that one of my employers at the company where I presently work is married to a federal judge, and they were hoping I could speak with him and help them. She even suggested that they were willing to pay whatever it needed, but they simply wanted me to put them in touch with my employer and, by extension, his wife. I thought it was rather out of line for her to ask, let alone expect me to do it. I immediately answered no, telling her that I would prefer it if she left me alone. I assumed she had come for emotional support, but this was not something I was going to promote or even discuss. I had several reasons for saying no, the primary one being that I did not want to bring this up with my supervisors and link myself with a family of fraudsters. More significantly, I follow a personal code of morality and ethics. While I don't want anything bad to happen to my sister, if Zach had committed tax fraud, I didn't want to get involved in a situation where I was attempting to aid him or influence the issue in his favor. At this time, it wasn't personal against him. I simply didn't want to become engaged. The most I could give them was emotional support, but for me to go to such lengths was ridiculous. When I said no and asked her to leave, my sister sulked and said she couldn't believe I was still angry at her husband for something that wasn't even his fault. I attempted to clarify that this was not about that. In fact, I had never truly blamed him for what happened to my father. My father decided to give him the position instead of me and allow him to take over the company. If I were in his shoes, I would probably have accepted the post without considering who genuinely deserved it. Maybe I despised him slightly, but I didn't bear a grudge. He just wasn't important enough for that. I tried to inform my sister, but she refused to listen, insisting that our mother had been correct. There was no sense in talking to me because I was still petty and selfish. We ended up fighting again, and I told her to leave my home. She couldn't just walk in and disrespect me after everything had happened, especially after I'd tried to console her, even if she never showed me the same courtesy when I was going through a difficult period. In fact, she argued with me back then because she saw it as a personal attack. She continued to do the same thing 2 years later. So if anyone was acting petty and selfishly, it was my family. Her remark about our mother being correct made me feel bad because, for the past 2 years, my mother had been the only person there for me. Now it felt as if she hadn't been there for me at all, and everything was all for show. I was already deeply offended, and my sister refused to leave. She remained standing there, uttering one nasty thing after another. It soon got to the point where both of us were yelling so loudly at each other that I couldn't hear what she was saying. We ended up yelling at each other before she finally left. I feel terrible about everything that is going on, but at the same time, I believe they deserve what is coming to them. I believe they deserve every negative thing that happens to them. I honestly believe that maintaining in touch with my mother during the last 2 years was a major mistake, and that I should have broken off my entire family when I had the opportunity. Even now, I regret wanting to be there for my sister when she was behaving crazy. They are clearly no longer deserving of my time or attention, as evidenced by their repeated demonstrations. But for some reason, I find it really difficult to completely remove them from my life totally. I keep thinking about our youth, how close we were, and it pains me to talk about it today. All of this is absolutely terrible. I wish it was all over soon. Update 3. It's been 4 days since my sister visited and we got into that argument. No one spoke to me for the following 4 days. I nearly thought they were going to leave me alone now. But today, my parents arrived, and this time I was determined not to let them in. I had already made the mistake of letting my sister in the previous time, and we all know how that went. I wasn't about to repeat my mistake. They were standing outside the door, and I ordered them to leave since I didn't think there was anything more to talk about. They couldn't possibly have anything new to say that hadn't previously been stated, so we could save each other's time and leave it at that. But my father stated he wasn't coming to ask for help. He truly came to apologize. He explained to me that after a long time, he understood he had done the wrong thing. He said that he had made the biggest mistake imaginable and that nothing he said would make it right. But the least he could do was talk to me and apologize for everything. I have to tell you, that actually surprised me since I was expecting him to walk up and start yelling at me or something. We hadn't spoken since the night of his retirement party, and I still remember him calling me a disappointment. I doubt I'll ever forget that. It was all I could think about while he apologized. When he was finished, I told him I was grateful that he had come all the way here to apologize, but it was difficult for me to forgive him. He couldn't just apologize and expect everything to be good, especially after 2 years of no communication and no effort on his part to contact me. I told him I needed time, and even then, I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to forgive him. It wasn't even the fact that he had screwed me over 2 years ago that worried me today, but rather the fact that it took him 2 years and so much hardship to realize he had done the wrong thing and eventually come and talk to me. That's what made me so sad. Even after that, I was expecting him to get angry and start yelling, but he simply stated that he was willing to wait for me to come around. He stated he'd be fine with it even if I never spoke to him again or forgive him. He admits that 2 years ago he made a poor decision. He didn't take my mental health lightly. He simply went too far. He added that in his family, all guys were raised to be rough. They thought that getting through life meant struggling through everything. Anyone who claimed to be anxious or depressed was perceived as weak and making excuses for oneself. When he learned I was using anti-anxiety medication, he began to doubt my ability to lead the company. He had started the business from beginning and couldn't afford to let it fail. His dread and paranoia got the best of him, and he made the worst option possible, which led to our current position. After we stopped talking, he revealed he was angry at me and had resented me for a few months. But then he started second-guessing himself, researching more about anxiety and its mechanisms. A few months ago, he began to suspect that he could be experiencing some symptoms and intended to contact me to resolve the situation. However, the entire episode with Zach came to light, and he was unable to do so. When my father finished describing everything, I felt weird about the scenario. I'm still not sure how I feel about it all, but at least he apologized. It may seem insignificant after 2 years, but it means a great deal to me. I don't know if I'll forgive him anytime soon, and I'm not sure if his apology was real, but I'm prepared to think about it and give it a try. For the time being, I told him to go home and that I would call him if I felt the need. He acknowledged that and departed. My mom and I didn't get to communicate much today. At first, she apologized to me, as did my father. Toward the end of our conversation, she expressed her willingness to wait for my forgiveness. She recognized that she had reacted too fast and rudely, rather than attempting to comprehend what I was going through. She also indicated that she had spoken with my sister, who wanted to repent for previously mistreating me. However, I don't consider that a true apology. My sister is an adult who can speak for herself. If she wants to apologize, she'll have to do so herself. I understand she is struggling with everything Zach related right now, but there is no justification for how she behaved the last time she visited. Anyway, most of my family members have apologized to me, and it is now up to me to determine whether or not to accept their apologies. I won't lie, it will be a difficult decision to make. I've gone 2 years without speaking to any of these individuals, with the exception of my mother, and even she's having some difficulties right now. On the one hand, I want to forgive everyone and move on with my life since I don't believe animosity would help me go on. If I don't forgive them, these ideas will continue to haunt me, as they have for the past few years, and I don't want that. On the other hand, I'm not sure if forgiving them and leaving things in the past is the proper thing to do. I'm just perplexed on what to do right now. If I'm honest, I miss my family tremendously, and everything is messing with my mind. I understand that some of you may believe they are only doing this because they are in problems right now, but I've already stated unequivocally that I cannot help them. Even if I could, I wouldn't. It's a matter of principle for me, and I'm not about to change it for anyone. So if they are hoping for my assistance, they have already set themselves up for disappointment. However, if that is not on their thoughts and they are truly attempting to repent and restore our broken connections, it complicates matters even further. I guess I'll sleep on it for a few days and consider what I want to do. I'll keep you all updated. Update 4. Hello everyone, it has been 4 months since I last checked in here. I got incredibly busy in the meantime, which I'll explain later. Anyway, in my last report, I said that my dad and sister both apologized to me. My parents did this in person, but my sister, who was preoccupied with Zach's condition, asked my mother to apologize on her behalf. A few weeks later, my sister came to see me in person and apologized. I told her the same thing I told my parents. I'd think about it and let her know. I thought about it. I took my time, and last month I informed them I wanted to restore our friendship, but at my own pace. I said I'd be willing to eat dinner with them once a month and see where it goes because I'm still unsure whether mending our friendship is a good idea. They were ecstatic and stated it was fine as long as I was happy. So that is where we are currently. We ate supper together a few weeks ago. It was embarrassing enough, but I could see they were genuinely attempting to make amends for the past by being especially friendly to me. Zach was not at the dinner because my sister filed for divorce 2 months ago and he had already been dismissed from his job. My father offered to make me the CEO, but I declined. I suppose I need more time. My father is currently handling things at the company, and he is still waiting for a response from me. I will think about it for a few more months and make a decision later, but I may accept. For the time being, I'm simply trying to focus on what I enjoy doing, which includes spending time with my girlfriend. She's an old acquaintance of mine, and we began dating a few months ago. That's what's kept me so busy lately. My life now includes more than just job and family problems. In reality, she was the one who persuaded me to forgive my family and give them another chance. I'm so glad we're together. I had liked her for a long time, but had never asked her out since I did not want to jeopardize our friendship. I am delighted she took the first step. Now that we're together, and I'm as happy as I can be, things are looking up for me.